The ship's hold smelled of fear. The air was thick with the scent of unwashed bodies, the tang of iron from old wounds, and the sickly sweet scent of desperation. Elias Carter, former Marine turned reluctant freelancer, stood in the dim light of the cargo bay, staring at the dozen pairs of alien eyes fixed on him. He'd been hired to transport special cargo by a group of smugglers operating in the outer colonies. He hadn't asked questions. He never did. The pay was good, the job simple. Pick up, deliver, move on. But when he cracked open the cargo containers mid-flight, checking for contraband before hitting the checkpoint, he hadn't found crates of illicit weapons or rare narcotics. He'd found people. They were small, thin, their limbs delicate but wiry, their large, luminous eyes blinking at him in silent terror. Their skin ranged from dull orange to deep violet, ridged with patterns that seemed more natural than decorative. Shackles clamped their wrists and ankles, restricting their movements to a pathetic huddle in the cramped space. Elias exhaled slowly, rubbing a hand over his face. Slavers. He should have known. He had spent years on the edges of lawless space, dealing with the dregs of humanity. But this was something else. A soft whimper broke the silence. One of the aliens, the smallest of the group, tried to shrink back as he approached. Wide, fearful eyes locked onto him, and Elias felt a stab of something he hadn't felt in years. Guilt. He crouched, hands up, palms open, trying to look as non-threatening as a broad-shouldered, battle-scarred human could. "I'm not gonna hurt you." None of them moved. None of them spoke. He wasn't even sure if they understood him. 1,000 thoughts ran through his head. He could still complete the job, pretend he hadn't seen anything. But the thought curdled his stomach. He could drop them off at the nearest port, but if slavers were working this sector, chances were they'd be recaptured before they even got off-world. He could try to report it to the authorities, except that out here, the authorities were often just as corrupt as the criminals. His hands clenched into fists. He'd made a career out of looking the other way. This time, he couldn't. Elias moved to the control panel, keying in a new course. He knew of a station, a hidden one, deep in neutral space. Run by ex-soldiers, outlaws with a conscience, people who took in those who had nowhere else to go. It was a risk, but it was the best chance these aliens had. He turned back to the huddled figures. "I don't know if you can understand me, but I'm getting you out of here." One of them, taller than the rest, with deep violet skin, studied him for a long moment before nodding. A slow, cautious movement, but a nod nonetheless. Elias released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. He had no idea what the hell he was going to do next. But for now, he had a ship full of passengers who needed saving, and for the first time in years, he knew exactly what the right thing to do was. He just hoped he survived long enough to see it through.